Now, let's learn how to use Autosum. Excel has a feature called Autosum, and it's so useful. It's on the Home ribbon tab. We spend so much time doing data entry. Of course, we'd want to see the values of the data that we are putting in, and we can do that easily with Autosum. So let's take this sheet. Now, I'm still in my formulas file. But if you'll notice at the bottom of the screen, I've changed from the formulas worksheet to the sums sheet. During January, these are all of the units sold for my products. If I want to find out the total amount of products that were sold during January, I can place the cursor here at the bottom of all my data and click the Autosum button on the top right hand side of the Home ribbon tab. It's going to put in the formula. In fact, here, I can see that it's just done my work for me. It's put in a sum function and it's summing cells B2 through B6. I'll hit the enter key and here's the Autosum. A nice thing about Autosum, and I'll delete this value, is that I can sum everything all at once. I'm going to click and drag with my mouse and select the bottom of all of these columns. If I click the Autosum button now, they will all populate with that data. In fact, if I click inside of each cell, I can look in the formula bar and see what it's calculating. In March, it's doing column D. In February, it's summing column C, and so on. And the really neat thing about Autosum is that it's not just for summing. If I click the down arrow next to Autosum, I can find the average, the highest values, even the lowest value in the series. For example, let's find out the highest number of units sold during January. I'll click the down arrow next to Autosum and choose max. I could also do that for the lowest, and it also works going vertically. Let's go to the end and do a different tally. This time, I want to see the total amount of units sold per product. So, I'll select the data this way and click Autosum again. This time, I get a completely new set of sums because it's summing across. And again, I could do the same thing. I could find the averages, the highest value, or the lowest values. So take some time, play around with Autosum, get used to experimenting with your various columns and rows and data, and see what you can calculate. Now, let's learn how to resize columns and rows. Let's practice resizing rows and columns. This is what you'll spend a lot of time doing, and it's something that we all tend to do right when we first open an Excel file, because you just need to adjust it so that it makes sense to you. For example, let's take column C here. I can see that a lot of these words are cut off. So it's common practice, if you open up an Excel file, to resize a column right away so you can read it. And the quickest way to resize a column is to hover your mouse right in the line between the column and click and drag with your mouse. You can make it wider or smaller. So what I could do here is just slide it around manually and feel it out and get it to a place where it looks comfortable to read. That's one way to resize a column. Another way to resize a column is to autofit it, that is, make it the smallest possible width so that you can still read all of the text in the column. The entire column is going to be as wide as the longest value in any of the cells in that column. To autofit a column, you can double-click right in between instead of clicking and dragging. Instantly, the column becomes nice and snug, but you can still read everything. Now, sometimes you'll open up an Excel file and you'll notice a lot of pound symbols in one column. That's what happens when there's a number and it's too small to fit the column. What I can do now is autofit this column by double-clicking. And here, I can read the extensions. You might want to autofit or resize the columns all at once. And you can do that by clicking the column header and dragging to select them all. Once they're all selected, anything that you do to any of these column headers will apply to all of them. For example, I can make them all the same size by resizing one of them. I can also autofit them all by autofitting one of them. The same is going to apply to rows. I can hover my mouse in between. Actually, I'll do this top row, hover my mouse, and click and drag to expand it. Now, something that you might want to do, also, once you expand this, is change all the font properties so they look a little bit nicer. For example, you might want to middle align them in the cell. Now, it looks a little bit easier to read. And again, if you wanted to do multiple rows, and you can click and drag and select them all. Resize one, and it's going to resize them all. I'll hit the undo button on that. Let's head over to the comments tab down below. This is something that you'll come across quite frequently. Here is looks like a rating sheet about a hotel. And there's a column for guest comments. You'll notice that if I click inside this cell I can read all the comments here, but it's very hard to read it in this cell. Now, the way the text wraps in this cell is something that you can control, and it will adjust the height of that cell. What I can do is highlight the entire column. And on the Home ribbon tab, I'll click Wrap Text. This is going to wrap the text into multiple lines so that we can read all of it all at once. I'm going to do the same thing to this cell. Now, we can read it comfortably. And if I wanted to, I can always make any manual adjustments that I want. It's still going to be wrapped here, but it's a little smaller. So you have some options. I'll go back to the Employees tab. And we can still read all of this text nice and clearly. So if you are ready to take your skills to the next level and unlock the full potential of your data, subscribe to my channel today. I can't wait to see you on the next video.